Hey, what's the crack, folks? And welcome to another hobby hangout. It's myself, Scarnier, or Dwayne, depending if you know me from the 40k Orcs or from Battletech. And this week's guest, we have Eric Vulgaris, or just Eric as I know him. What's the crack?
Yeah. Hey, what's up, everybody? What's up, internet? Good to be here.
Keeping. How are you, Eric?
Oh, man, living the dream, you know.
As you do, as you
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. I've a few mechs lined up for tonight. I've got a lot of clan mechs that from the advent calendar event that I did in December, which was one video a day every day. Boy, Jesus.
Yeah,
And
I know. Staying on top of that must have been a huge effort.
oh, it was interesting. Videos, you know, it kept getting knocked back later and later. It's like, oh, I'll have an upload time of 9 o'clock in the evening, and then eventually it ended up at like
Midnight,
2 in the morning, 2
yeah,
or 3
2
in the morning.
Jeez.
Depending on what happened that day,
Yeah.
you know what I mean. But yeah, no, it was
Yeah.
fun. It was fun. I enjoyed it. It's a bit of crack. It's something different. You know yourself.
Yeah, he stuck to the schedule too.
Yeah, mostly I didn't miss a video. What about yourself, Eric? What are you doing hobby wise?
Hobby-wise, I have a stack of MDF stuff that I'm going to be making today. A bunch of little mini vehicles and stuff for texture, terrain to, my Alpha Strike games.
Oh, that's right. You're mad into the old. Yeah, you're a mad one for the old Alpha Strike. We'll give some people context for who don't know.
Yeah.
So, myself and Eric, we go to the same gaming group, I suppose, the same social night for
Yeah,
Battletech.
the same. We're a drinking group with a Battletech problem.
That's it. Yeah, up in the old Clan Silly Inn. And that's how we know each other. We have played your yeah, we had an interesting game. You're poor awesome, but yeah, that was
Yeah, I know.
see, I just can't get over it. I don't understand why people would take the awesome and put weapons with ammo in it, and it's like, this seems like a bad combo. But some people swear by it. The LRM, awesome, they really do. I don't know. I haven't tried it myself. Maybe that's what my problem
I
is.
don't. Yeah, I don't see the. I'm with you in that camp for what it's worth. But you know what? I could really use your advice on something real quick.
Go
What
for it.
is? How do you use super glue without gluing your hands together and your fingers?
Oh,
How do
very
you do that?
very carefully, I suppose, is the answer to that. This is part of why I bought some of that debonder. You can buy like debonder for super glue.
That
That,
exists.
my friend, is a sound investment. You don't just buy that out of the blue. That's from experience.
Yeah. Did not even know that is on the menu. That would be a lifesaver. Right now, I'm just like, at the end of this night, I'm going to be running my fingers off almost like mini sandpaper and some water to clean them,
Yeah.
assembling all this MDF stuff with super glue.
I mean, yeah, it can be like if it gets really bad and you've got a fingerprint reader to open your phone. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's going to get there for sure by the end of tonight.
No
Just,
access to the internets no more.
yeah, you can be careful, you can do your best, but when you're dealing with little like MDF kits, you're going to get super glue on your fingers, period.
So you're doing MDF kits to the terrain. Like
Yeah.
what are you doing prep wise in regards to painting? Because I know with like MDF, it
Yeah.
can absorb a fair amount of paint. So do you seal them, or are they actually HDF kits, or
No, they're
what do you
MD.
do?
They're definitely MDF. But no, what I do is just slather them in Vallejo surface primer. Just typically like 2.5, maybe even 3 coats, depending on I always find that Vallejo is like this is I don't have an airbrush or nothing, right? Just straight up, just the giant bottle. Let me grab it 1 second.
The surface primer, is it?
Yeah, like there's this stuff that everyone kind of knows, right?
The same bottle I've had for 10 years. That'll tell you how often
Yeah,
I
right.
paint. Like, you know.
Yeah, exactly, right? The old reliable, as we call it. It can run a little thin, especially not the black one, but like the gray one can. So I just find multiple, and that's not even like on MDF, just in general, it's a little thin. But like that's grand. But like when it comes to MDF, man, yeah, it soaks it up. So you got to use it like 2-3 coats sometimes just to get that solid color that you want. Now, if somebody knows like I heard something about like varnish you could do, but if there's like I'd rather not get the varnish out first. If there's just a better primer that can stick to MDF earlier, let me know.
Well, I remember a good while back on a hobby hangout with John Bowen. This is going way back. He was
Yeah.
making terrain out of cardboard, and the thing that he used to get around that issue, I think, was Mod Podge. He was using Mod Podge, but he was also using it to sort of texture it. He was making like
Yeah.
orky buildings, and
Oh, for sure.
he'd stipple it on, but it was sort of like a sealer, and it sort of gave it a bit of strength at the same time. You know what I mean? So
Oh yeah.
maybe
No, that makes a
experiment
lot of
with
sense.
something like.
Yeah. Yeah, because I would stop water and
Yeah,
that would
exactly.
be
That's the one sort of thing that I'd be hesitant with cardboard terrain is, you know, I'm very conscious of moisture damage, taking into account we live in Ireland, and it's like, oh,
Yeah, I know, right?
storing plastic miniatures out in a shed isn't too bad, but no books or board games or cardboard terrain because it'll just be killed. You
Oh
know what I
my
mean?
god. Oh yeah, no, there's nothing left of it, you know. It'd be like a post-Word of Blake attack. Gonna
It's
be
like the wasps have been
really
in here and the fungus.
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, it literally looks like something out of The Last of Us. It's just covered in green.
Yeah, yeah, definitely scuttling towards you. It's like,
Yeah.
what's this? This is your terrain. This is what's left of
Yeah.
your terrain.
Yeah, is my copy of Risk supposed to be moving? So, yeah, for sure.
We have a few people have joined us for the stream as well. We have Van
Yeah.
Hammer, Lorcan's here, Squig Boss, Mad Knobs. I think Lorcan's giving us a bit of advice saying gesso might be good if you dilute it. No people who prime minis with gesso. Yeah, like,
Gesso?
that's mad. Yeah, the sort of
Computer. Define gesso.
it's the stuff that they put on canvases. Actual artists. Well, what do I mean? You know what I mean. People who paint on
Okay.
canvas. They
Yeah.
prep their the canvases, the blank canvases with gesso, and apparently it shrinks down and tightens up or something like that. But
Mm.
I've heard of people doing it on minis, but I'd be a bit more reluctant. It's kind of like consistency of toothpaste. I think it's not like super watery, but I think just like a good primer, good sealer primer would
Yeah, that's what
probably
it.
work.
All right. Yeah, just looked it up. Okay, okay. Yeah. That that makes a lot of sense. Gesso, yeah. If diluted it. Yeah, I don't know how thick it runs first, but that might be helpful for MDF. Anything I'm also just interested in anything that can speed up the process of painting and
Oh,
all that kind
definitely.
of stuff, you know.
Any tips people throw your way in regards to getting the hobby done quicker is definitely very welcome. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. 100%. Also, I see that you pre-base your models with like some kind of grit or sand or something for them, and
Yeah.
then prime it all together
Yeah,
rather
I
than doing it
try to,
after
or
the fact.
sometimes I do it after the fact. The
Okay.
Vallejo ground texture acrylics are really good. The diorama effects.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The, the rough white pumice is the one I like to use. That's
Rough promise.
Yeah, rough white pumice. Now, there is another one that doesn't have any sort of like grit in it, and that's not the one you want. I know this because I accidentally
Okay.
bought that one.
Got it. Yeah.
Initially.
Again, learning from experience.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
No, I love talking to you about this because it's very much like you get to spend the money and realize you make a mistake, and I just get to reap the reward. So keep going, man.
Yeah, exactly. Sharing is indeed caring.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
this is very much a second mouse gets the cheese effect here.
Definitely. Now, there are sort of coloured ones as well. They do. We even have the tub handy. I do have a miniature that's done up in it. Some of my original mechs are done up in like this sort of grey colour.
Yeah.
And they do have pre-coloured ones, so they've like European mud and dark mud and all this type of stuff.
Hold on. European mud.
Well, something like that. I can't remember. This one's called dark
Wow.
mud, but there are specific names for their products. And originally that's what I was gonna go with, but I find there's more versatility if you just go with the white one because it's, I'm going
You can
to
just color it.
Yeah, I'm gonna play on the moon or Mars like color or whatever, grass even.
Yeah.
Paint it green. It
Right.
looks fine.
Yeah. It doesn't. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense because then you have a better control of the color.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
imagine if you were doing like a huge board, I think you're saving some time with the colored pre-colored effects, you know. But yeah,
I wouldn't want
like
to do a whole board like because it's not super cheap, but it's cheaper than other For the volume you get, I find it's a reasonable price. Do you know what I mean? Like if you were going to do a
Right.
whole board, I'd probably go and do it building from scratch. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's definitely a dream of mine. I would love to get one of those large, this you've seen the stuff off like all the gaming scenics and stuff like that, all those big huge battle boards that they make. A million other people
I
make
mean,
YouTube videos, that
they
kind of stuff.
look good. I think the
Look
problem with me
incredible.
now is the practicality side of it. I'm
Yeah.
I'm at
No, exactly.
I'm
Yeah.
at that stage in my hobby where I'm like, it looks great, but then
Where,
I think like, where am
where
I
are
going
you
to store
storing it?
this?
Yeah.
How often
Yeah,
am I
man.
gonna
It's a
get to
little
use it? Yeah.
like forgive the crassness of this, but it's a little bit like hobby porn, Like it's just like completely unrealistic to what actually is happening.
Oh
Like
yeah,
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 like
yeah.
it's completely like I am never going to have a 8x8 board of epic 1 by like a 1 to 200 scale of this battle on Tukiyat or something. Like
Exactly.
we're never gonna,
But
or
boy,
like
does it look
Hephaestus or
good.
something.
You
Yeah.
know.
God, I know.
But yeah, it
Yeah.
is that sort of the realism of like how much space do I have or what's
Yeah.
practical. I think that's why I love the neoprenes mats that they brought out for BattleTech, is that it's just roll it up in a tube and that's
Pops
it.
your uncle.
It's put
Yeah.
away or back in, like even the boxes that they come in like are pretty handy.
Yeah, I
Stack it
I
away
saw
like.
that. Yeah, they're actually like really durable containers.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Surprisingly so.
yeah, I was really impressed with that stuff. Now, you know, I do feel like I need to coach this a little bit because I'm not just like, oh my god, I love Alpha Strike or whatever like that. Like I love Classic as well. It's just, if I could get the terrain to look as good, as in the hexless environment, that would look good. So that's why another reason why I'm not a super big fan of the neoprene mats. But I know there's compromises there. Everything's always about trade-offs.
Well, that's it. Like I know they do the Alpha Strike neoprenes, but it's literally the some of the mats that have hexes without hexes. But that's
Yeah.
because there was demand for people. Now that ain't my cup of tea, but it's somebody's cup of tea. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Some of the guys at their
Absolutely.
club are asking
Yeah.
ordered in, so it's like, oh okay, if this is. But
Yeah.
I
Do,
get
pe-
what you're
do,
saying.
do folks play hexless classic? I feel like
Uh,
that combination together seems like
I know it's
seems
viable.
weird.
I know it can be done, but I enjoy the actual hex grid aspect of
Yeah, for
a
sure.
classic game. Just the sort of strategic movement and the fields of fire. And there isn't
Oh
that
yeah.
sort of there isn't really wobble room in regards to how far people are moving that comes with like measuring tapes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's exactly. You are abstracting all of that to be like, look, I move a hex, and the hexes are predetermined, and so there's no like, did I actually move my full distance or not of like 20 inches or whatever, and measuring all that stuff out. It's like, no, I moved the 12. I can count to 12 way faster than I can bust out a ruler and like, when I'm changing my facing and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly.
And I enjoy
There's
that.
something elegant about it.
I enjoy that abstraction because for me it brings a certain level to the game that like literal sort of, I don't really know how to explain this.
No,
Yeah,
try.
the literal sort of like physical environment that's introduced with like a measuring tape um brings in that sort of gray area where arguments can appear, and it's an aspect that I disliked about using measuring tapes and having open movement and facing, is that they can be that sort of gray area at times. And 99% of the
Yeah.
time it's grand, you resolve it with people, but every now and
Yeah.
then when it crops up, if you're with a difficult player, you're playing with a difficult player maybe in a tournament or something like that, I find that the whole aspect of it being abstracted out to the point that it is with Battletech, it's so solid that there is no arguing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can almost describe it like it's an analog component. It's a little fuzzy. Like you can't always yeah, you can't be precise with your movements as much as you can with hexes, right? And
Yeah,
hexes
yeah.
speed it up exactly. Even though it does kind of yeah, we just abstract out that we don't talk about the engines of every mech being like, I'm actually running 86 kilometers an hour right now. Like we don't talk about that. We just say like, I'm moving 5 hexes or
Exactly. Yeah.
whatever it is. Yeah, it's a neat little abstraction. Keeps it simple. Is definitely it's definitely one of the most elegant parts for me, for sure.
The
I
movement,
enjoy it.
yeah. I mean, like,
Yeah.
look, no gaming
It takes the
system's
longest though.
perfect, but it
Yeah.
is for me. I enjoy it. I like it. I think maybe it's because
Yeah.
it's years of playing 40k where there's all this sort of
Yeah, I was gonna say
literal rule
There-
sets, and then they're abstract in some regards. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I definitely could I sensed the prior tournament 40k playing you and having bad interactions from that when you brought up your preferences.
I'm not bitter. I'm not
It was
bitter at all.
palpable, man.
I'm not bitter at all. At all.
No, no, I'm not crying. You're crying. Yeah, for sure.
Definitely. But no, it's fun. Like it is. It's fun. I
Yeah.
enjoy how BattleTech plays. Is the key thing for me. I've
Yeah.
always enjoyed how they played, but boy Christ, did the miniatures suck back in the day, and they were hard to get a hold
Yeah,
of.
they really
Oh.
did. What was the name of the company? Not we don't have to put them on blast. Was it like Real Parther or something?
Real
Like this,
Parther.
like the
And I mean,
yeah,
look,
the skinny metal lads, man. Just yeah.
some of them were good. Some of the
Oh
old
yeah.
sculpts I enjoyed, like the classic crab. I really like the look of. The classic trebuchet. There he is. There. It's the
Yeah, the helmet.
force maker I ever used. I really like the look of it. You know, it's got that sort of 80s vibe to it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Some of them are good mechs, but it's very hit and miss. Some of them were, ugh, yeah, they got hit with the ugly stick
Yeah.
and then some. Like, you know,
What's your opinion on the older Marauder sculpts? Are you in pro? Are you pro choice on Marauders?
in regards to Marauders, I mean, like
Yeah.
it's okay. I think the older Marauder sculpts are okay. There are worse mechs. Like some of them were
Yeah.
shocking. Like the
The
really
Jenner.
old Thunderbolts.
Yeah. The
Really
old
old
Jenner, man.
Thunderbolts. The Jenner. Yeah,
Just as like all legs.
yeah, it's all legs, like the old Jenner mech.
Yeah. It looks like it's what's it called? That ska dance for ska music. I forgot what it's called. Skanking.
Which
Just looks just yeah, the Jenner. It's just like its legs are so like just weirdly posed.
yeah, this is a strange one. It is a strange mech, all right. But I mean, like that is the whole joke with it. Is like it, you know, being named after Bruce Jenner. That is why it's called the Jenner. Like
Yeah.
it's its whole thing. Is it's running.
Really? Really?
Yeah. That's why it's called the Jenner.
I literally had no idea.
Yeah, I only
That's-
learned that recently myself. Like I'm like, oh my god. There's a lot of that type of stuff. BattleTech, funnily enough. You know what I mean?
Real. Okay, what are some other examples of like mechs named after like other like things that you wouldn't expect, right?
I think Lorcan's probably the best man to ask in that
Okay,
regard.
yeah. Oh, he knows the deep lore.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Lorcan. Like it's the old hands have been around since like Days Splash. No
yeah, for
stuff
sure.
from back in the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, Lorcan was actually conceived in one of those mech pods.
That would not surprise me. But I think he predates the mech pods. Like that's you know. Maybe he was a.
He was like he got the high score in one of them. He was a Mad Dog pilot for sure.
Probably.
He's got that energy.
So Lorcan says the Owens is named after Jesse Owens as a nod to the Jenner. So there you go. Hobbygate is saying, I mean, the modern Jenner ain't great either. Yeah, it's I'm not a massive fan of the modern Jenner. It's a bit soft on the detail. I actually, if I was given a choice between the old Jenner and the new one, I think I'd actually pick the old sculpt. But really, I think this, you know, the highlight would be the 3D print, like the MechWarrior 5 version of the Jenner, or MechWarrior Online. That's
a good balance.
That's a spicy meat the bottle. You know what I mean? It's that's a good one.
Look, I applaud your bravery to say it. I'm also not a fan of the Kickstarter Jenner sculpt for the exact same reason. Just painting them, it just feels like the detail gets lost on them.
I don't know what it is. It's like it's kind of trying to be like organic.
Yeah,
like it looks. It's soft. I think is the only term I can really say is the detail seems soft. It doesn't seem sort of chunky. It doesn't have that chunky look that a lot of them have, and it doesn't seem streamlined enough to look like it's fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, at least when the back when it was 80% legs, you're like, oh yeah, that's a speedy boy.
Yeah, exactly. But it had a certain angular look to it.
Yeah.
I mean, it did look ridiculous with like the head sticking out forward, but you know that's sort of
Yeah.
quirkiness of the mech. But yeah, I just find it looks detail looks soft. Is
Yeah.
all I can really come to mind, which is surprising because some of the mechs are absolutely cracking. Like the
Oh
Grendel
yeah.
here,
Yep.
crisp,
Phenomenal.
crisp detail, nice sculpt.
Yeah.
It's really good. Like,
Yeah, I think the Grendel was actually the first mech I painted being here. Yeah. It's super good. It's also just a really good mech.
see, and you know, I am also part of the Grendel fan club. Others in our,
There's dozens of us.
yeah, I think it's just me and you, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think there's quite a few who actually aren't fans of the Grendels. You know, the naysayers, those who don't
That's
see
true.
the light of the Grendel. I mean, it's a great mech. You know what I
Sure.
mean, cracking mech,
Yeah.
great looking.
Just, clan it just turns out that clan LRMs are really good.
I remember the first time I came across Clan LRMs, and I was like, "This is bullshit." What do you mean
Yeah.
they've no minimum range? Because I was thinking to myself,
Yeah.
"Oh, you know, the
Oh yeah,
clanners."
sorry. I'm thinking the one of the configurations as LRMs. I don't know what the core one does,
I'm very
but it
into.
doesn't
I
matter.
think so. I think there's, but
Yeah.
you know, the whole idea of my in my mind what the clanners were, and then you know using the inner sphere. I was thinking to myself, the concept that the Viet Cong used, where it's like, you know, holding by their belt buckle. You know what I mean? If you
Yeah.
get in so close, they can't they can't use their superior range. It's like that doesn't work with Clanner LRMs.
Yeah.
There's no minimum range. It's like what?
No.
It's like what do you mean? Yeah, yeah. I would have expected it to. I would have expected them to have a minimum range of 3 hexes, half of the like the inner sphere. I think that would have
Yeah.
been that would have been
Instead,
fair. Yeah.
instead they're just like, oh, they're just like strictly SRMs but better. It's just strange that
So yeah,
uh
they're just so like an all LRM boat is just like, oh, you're right beside me. I'll just
yeah.
shotgun you in the face with all of these. It doesn't matter. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you spend so much time grinding your teeth on playing against LRMs in the inner sphere, and now it's a completely different ballgame.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can see because I intentionally kept
But
myself ignorant of clan
yeah.
tech, even though I knew it was there and I had like the TROs and stuff. I
Yeah.
wanted to have that sort of genuine experience of playing against them the first time. Which one was it? I think it was like a fire mod. No, even the Grendel. You know,
Yeah.
uh, uh, when we were playing, and they said it had a movement profile of 711 and I was like, what? I just,
Yeah.
I was
It's
baffled. It
yeah,
can go how fast?
you just look at your entire deployment, you're just like, "What? How am I doing anything here?"
It's like, how do I counter this? Because
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion, you know, like I love the L585s, your Wolverines, your Griffins. Not so much a
Sure.
fan of the Shadowhawk.
Oh. Yeah. Are you is there any Shadowhawk that variant that you like at all? Or is it just categorically no?
I'm not too pushed about them, but I've an interesting idea. It seems like it's a sort of a jack of all trades mech, but I would
Sure.
think that maybe like the 2H would actually work well in a lance of Shadowhawks. So that they could, you know what I mean? Because each mech only has so much of each range bracket. But if the four of them worked in concert with each other, they could bring to bear all of a specific weapon range bracket. So it's like they all bring their ACs to bear and their LRMs to bear, you know what I mean? And focus down one target. Like I'd like to try that out sometime and see how it works. Um,
Yeah.
but otherwise, I find it's a bit sporadic. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Sure. Would you take do you take the Griffin over the Vindicator? We were talking about mechs.
Eh, Griffin's a good mech. I don't know yet. I don't know. I haven't played the Vindicator enough to really get a feel for it. I
Sure.
like the Griffin. I do. But I think I'd have to play a bit more with the Vindicator to be able to give you an honest answer because it would just be an uneducated guess at this stage. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. It's theory, not enough practice. I'm
Mm.
surprised a man like yourself hasn't played every single mech yet.
Yeah, well, there's so many, man. There's so many.
Yeah. Yeah, but you you go to every meetup. Like you play more than most people, you know?
Yeah, I do get
It's
a
still
couple
not
games
enough.
in. Yeah, but I think my problem is I like build a force and then I get complacent then because it's like, oh, I already have a force painted, so it's like I want to have them
Mm.
painted.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So doing a new force is like, well, remind yourself to do hobby between this time and the next meetup, and then we have a lance or a star painted up that
Yeah,
stage.
you have something else. Right. Okay. So then when like you're doing a force, like you're doing a force right now, right? You already have a theme in mind, you have a concept, you have a plan for them all, right?
Kind of. It'll be like if I was like when I was introduced to Infernos.
Yeah.
I decided, oh, I'll try two Wolverine 7Ks. They have 2 tons of SRM ammo, so I can do a ton of standard and a ton of Infernos. And I was
Yeah.
thinking to myself, what else do I want in this land? So I'm like, oh, the Night Star looks cool, and it's 2 Gauss cannons, so that can be the long range support. And the synergy between them, it'll be like, the Wolverines will go up and cook someone, force them to shut down, and the Night Star will just like throw Gauss rifles into them. And
Yep.
then it's like, oh, my 7,500 BV force. It's like, oh, what can I spend these 1,400 and something battle value on? And I'm looking at mechs and I'm going, oh, the Thunderbolt's good. So I took like a Succession Wars one and then I changed it for I think is it the Aerodynamic Light Horse? The thing it's got like a
The
large
jumpy one?
pulse laser. It
Yeah,
jumps, the jumpy one. And I found that was a better
yeah.
fit. And that's how that force came about. Like, and I enjoy how it plays. It's good fun.
Hmm. That's really interesting. I feel like the jumping Thunderbolt is one of those mechs that's very polarizing.
How so?
I always thought that like it just feels like it's either really good on paper and it fits like a lance with that you're also jumping a lot with. Um, you kind of have to like build a lance for it, right? Or it complements a lance of jumpers, but it kind of loses a lot of the firepower and I don't know, even like a little bit of staying power that the OG Thunderbolt has, right? I think you have to
In some
you
regards,
lose a
I can
lot
get
with
what
it.
you're saying. I like it in that lance that I've built. I find it works really well as interference for the Night Star,
Yeah.
keeping people away.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but its jump jet capability also means that I can lay in with the Wolverines if
Yeah.
somebody puts a mech out front and leaves themselves in a vulnerable position, they can exploit that as well.
100%. Well, yeah, you're just a big fan of jump jets in general.
Oh yeah, I love jump jets.
Oh yeah.
5A5 mechs are my
Yeah.
favorite. Like I prefer medium mechs to heavies and assaults. Um, Lights are fun, but are a bit squishy.
Sure.
But I
Yeah.
enjoy mediums. Those sort of mediums, 55 tons, 5A5. Good bit of armor, some firepower, but the good maneuverability. Like that's what I like playing when I get the chance. But
S- Yeah.
you have to have
Okay.
variation as well. You know what I mean? I can't just keep playing that all the time. I need to learn how to play a certain light mech. It's like, I've done that before. That's a bit interesting, trying to get
Yeah, yeah,
used to a
yes.
mech that you don't normally.
Yeah. So, this might be even like a broader than just BattleTech, but like when it comes to you playing games, do you tend to pick like a strategy and play the game a lot with that strategy, like you would with the jump jets, and then like use that to kind of learn the game, and then use that as a branch off point? It's like kind of how you feel with like your current land structure and how you play this Night Star, Wolverine, Thunderbolt lance, and you're just kind of
Um,
looking for the next thing, or am I reading too into?
I suppose it just sort of it depends. Starting off like for BattleTech, it's like I was reading into this jumpy sort of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like highly maneuverable, but like when I was playing 40K, like I play with hordes of orcs, and maneuverability isn't the name of the game at all. Like,
No,
so
it says move.
it just depends on the game. Like, or I'll come up, a concept or an idea. Oh, this
Mm.
would be a great army. Regardless of whether it will fit well with
Yeah,
the meta of the rules or not. It's like this will be fun. This will look cool.
Sure.
and then getting
But
your
I
ass
got
handed to you. But you know, it's fun.
okay. Let me try to rephrase the question then a little bit. Or restate it. Did you so like when you were playing 40K, you basically you fall in love with like one faction and you play that faction a lot, right? Like you don't like try a bunch of different armies. You would be kind of like I'm committed to this one force and
Yeah,
play with them a
I
lot.
tended to focus on one army at a time. So I was really big into Space
Yeah.
Wolves, and then I switched over to Orcs. And yeah, it tends to be I focus on one faction, which I
Yeah.
find isn't the norm, I think, for the majority of people who
Yeah.
play 40K.
N- yeah, I don't think that's true for most people.
A lot of folks tend to have a few smaller armies for different
Yeah.
factions, whereas I
They
was
have
just like, all the Orcs.
yeah, it's like they have a core army, like that's like their mainstay. Like for you, it's like, it's my orcs. I have my 2,000 painted, points or 5,000 points of orcs that I've been working on for years. But then I'm kind of flirting with Dark Eldar. I'm kind of flirting with I have a small little chapter of Black Templar. Something like that, right? Like there's always like another little side project that someone's kind of working on as a
hmm
change of pace somewhere. Um, okay,
I mean, I am
no,
tempted by other factions at times. Like
sure,
I'm looking at the Tyrannid. This is my problem for 40K. I've always been interested in Horde armies. I don't know what it
yeah.
is. Maybe it's like big armies,
Look, I hear you, man.
lots of troops. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's
Um,
why I love Imperial Guard. I love the idea of
yeah,
just
oh
being
yeah.
like a guy
I'm
in the middle
surprised.
of like in the middle of fucking superheroes and aliens and
It's just a
all this
dude.
kind of stuff. He's like, I'm just a dude.
Just
I'm just
just a dude with a ass gun, just mind my own business over here.
yeah,
I'll just take my
right.
trench, you know.
Yeah, like that's what I love. Like that's why I never got in BattleTech and stuff. Also, like I don't really want to play with custom mechs. Like I like the idea of just being like I'm playing with the core stuff and like I have to make this work. Rather than trying to optimize or do something this one. I love the idea of just like I'm trying to win with the standard stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I love that idea even still in BattleTech as well, that there is infantry and, shitty vehicles, and like I'd be more than
Yeah,
happy to play like the planetary defense force in a scenario where you're playing against the players in their shit hot mechs, and it's like
yeah,
I've just got, shitloads of infantry and a few anti-tank rifles, and I'm hoping for the best here. You know what I mean?
I know, right?
I
Yeah,
like that as a concept.
right. Like you basically like some of your vehicles are pretty much like they wouldn't be out of place if you saw like a video of them in Syria or something like that. You
Yeah,
know what
yeah,
I mean? It's just
exactly.
like
Like
a flat gun on it's a
just
bad technical,
just
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just like on the back of
shitty
a
technicals fighting against battle mechs. I'm like
yeah, right.
perfection. That's
Yeah.
some gameplay right there.
I mean, that's literally like that. Know what that is? That is we have the clan invasion at home, kind of energy. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah,
budget
yeah,
clan. How
totally.
do I make this force work against an atlas?
Because I've often thought of that. If I was to make my own sort of scenario or storyline or a
Yeah.
campaign where it would be, I love the idea with the whole periphery in BattleTech that you could have, um, like a unit have a failed jump and jump into a system that has like doesn't have battle mechs anymore. You know what I mean? So these
Oh
guys
yeah.
are sort of you know the clanners of the clan invasion of like the system. They come in, they have to, their ship's damaged, they have to land on planet, and then I love the idea where it's like there's no other mechs, but what resources that the unit do have, they have to nurse, because there are no medium lasers here. You know what I mean? That large laser, it's like if that's gone, good luck. You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Yeah, their darling hero urban mech that's been around for forever with a still functional AC-10, and that's it.
Yeah, exactly. So
Like
I'd see it that way, like the technology level being brought back to like machine guns and auto cannons and stuff like that. It's like, well, we colonized this planet and, we lost contact, and
yeah,
we're just not able to build this high tech stuff because we've been busy bombing the shit out of each other or whatever.
I know. Well, I think I would draw the line where you're trying to be like, yeah, well, I'm trying to make a commando have an internal combustion engine and still work. You
I see,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, I get you, yeah, yeah. Maybe
But
maybe
yeah,
you'd come across like something like what the Germans were doing in World War II, where it's, vehicles where they've taken the turret off it and put it as part of defense work. So it's like, oh,
Yeah.
we don't have the engine to run this demolisher around anymore, but we built this turret and built this concrete bunker and put the turret on it, and hey presto, that'll work.
Yeah, right. Like imagine a turret that's built out of the like old carcass of a Thunderbolt. That's like sitting up, right?
Yeah, that's
It's
just torso or whatever on arms and
yeah. So it's just an LRM and and like a laser. Yeah.
that'd be fun.
Oh yeah. That's a good story right there.
Yeah, there's a lot of possibility, but I like that about
Yeah.
Battletech is you can do your own thing. Like,
Yeah, like there's definitely, if it wasn't so math heavy, the idea of having to build like a force out of like here's a junkyard of parts for a mech, build two mechs and we fight with them. Kind of like how there's a board game called Race for the Galaxy, where like you're trying to build
oh
a small
yeah,
starship.
or is that
Like the
like
idea, yeah.
Galaxy Truckers? I think is the
Or
one. I'm
Galaxy
thinking.
Truckers. Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
I got them mixed up. Yeah, obviously Race for the Galaxy is a card game. Yeah, no, yeah, Galaxy Truckers is the thing I'm thinking of. The idea that like you have to, it's like there's like those cooking competitions where you have to go into the pantry and grab the things and then fight with what you got, right? And just in the mech sphere of that would be so much fun. Like, okay, well, we got two LRM-15s. I got a 65-ton chassis. I got a rifleman. Oh God, what am I gonna do with this? This thing's gonna explode. That kind of I don't know. That's also kind of why I like my draft format. I love the idea of like having to play with what you got.
Yeah. That aspect that you do play with your scenarios, that's fun. I like that. And
Yeah.
it sort of plays into the lore as well. Like you'll get variants of mechs that aren't optimized, and it's like this is all we had to put on these mechs. They're, if you're looking at the meta, they're suboptimal, but it's like there's an in-lore reason. We don't produce
Oh yeah.
the optimum weapons. We only produce these, you know?
Yeah, and you realize that, yeah, exactly. The only medium laser depot is 6 months away. That's
Exactly.
why it has machine guns instead.
Stephen Cross was asking if we were looking forward to the next Kickstarter. Yep. Definitely.
Oh yeah. My wallet isn't though.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I made a meme, something of that line the last time. I won't be going as crazy as the last Kickstarter, but I will be dropping.
Oh, you're not gonna
some
be no second mortgage for you?
No, I've only got 2 kidneys. You know what I mean? One's already been sold. So.
Yeah, one's already on.
Another one's already been shipped off. So no.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Hey, that makes a lot of sense. Appreciate the restraint there.
Well, I mean, I'm saying
will,
that now,
yeah.
but we'll see how that pans.
Yeah, exactly right. It's easy. It's all easy talk and bluster before it gets launched, and you're looking at the amazing
like,
sculpts that they have lined up, man.
I think I won't be as worried about trying to get a hold of the mix now, because when the original Kickstarter came out, it was hard to get a hold of miniatures and box sets.
Oh my God, was it?
Whereas now the distribution has improved massively, so I won't be as heartbroken. I think, like, if I jump onto the new Kickstarter, I'll be looking for Kickstarter exclusive stuff. See if there's anything I really like. Hopefully they don't do any fugly or Urban Mech plushies. By God, that thing was horrendous looking. But hence the more restraint. I'm like, oh, okay, it's actually possible to get a hold of these miniatures now. Whereas previously I went a bit crazy because I was like, I'm not guaranteed to get a hold of these for I don't know how long.
Oh yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because it was, which I feel like other people were having the similar thoughts as you, which kind of probably exacerbated the issue of over capacitizing on their end, right? Being like, oh God, we did not anticipate the demand of this amount of stuff.
Oh yeah, it was like, but it was good.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. I wonder what they're doing behind the scenes for this Kickstarter, getting it ready, right? What they should be anticipating.
From what I understand, the miniature release isn't going to be as massive. It's not going to be as big as the previous one.
Okay.
Miniature wise, there's 50 something miniatures. Don't quote me on that, but it's
Sure.
the miniature line won't be as big as the previous Kickstarter. Like previous Kickstarter, pretty much like brought to life, the miniature line as
everything
as we know.
Yeah.
Well, that was going to happen eventually, but instead of it taking 5 years, it took like 2. You know what I mean? Injected a lot of cash into the game and helped massively.
Yeah, but I guess what I mean is, not even just in term. You're right, because you're absolutely right. I didn't even think about the amount of time and the diversity of sculpts. And I know this would it'd be smaller in scale of in terms of the types of sculpts, but I think just in terms of volume, right? Like, do they have enough printers? I guess wherever they're printing these mechs, probably China, right? Like,
Yeah.
do they have enough to get the volume to handle the volume of backers they're anticipating and that kind of stuff? So I imagine there's got to be folks who got the Alpha Strike box or whatever and was like, oh man, Battletech's kind of really fun. And they're like, oh, there's a Kickstarter coming up, and there's probably a bunch of people who are kind of sleeping on, who just are getting into the hobby just now, who are going to be, you know, big fans or going to use the Kickstarter as their entry point.
I think the last Kickstarter was a wake up call in that regard, in
Yeah.
regards to volumes, because the print runs that they're doing now and the amount of it, the volume of it, it has, you know what I mean. If they were to get that wrong now, I think there'd be, I think that would be bordering on negligence at that stage. You know what I mean? But from what I understand, like the first Kickstarter gave them a kick up the ass in the holy shit category, and I think they're
Yeah.
aware at this stage.
Good,
What I
good, good.
understand, what I peripherally see going on,
Yeah.
they seem to know. Like, did you they're doing print runs of products like crazy now compared to previously.
Oh yeah. They are just man, they're like the actual fictional factories of BattleTech, just churning out mechs constantly.
I wonder if they'll ever bring production to the US, like if they'll bring it in house.
I'm sure a lot of companies are wondering that. I don't know if BattleTech's big enough to justify that, right? But like if there was another company that was kind of doing it, like, for example, if Seamon or like Asmodee, like a board game company was looking at investing it that way and
Yeah.
then being like, hey, like we could go in with you on bringing over these resin printer or whatever, not resin. It's not resin, it's whatever uh, the mold stuff is, right? If we could, we could go and share this stuff and bring it in as more of like I don't know, it seems like a whole industry wide thing, rather than just, I don't think Catalyst can justify building a giant factory that would be around for years and years and years building that kind of stuff in a relatively expensive place like the States.
I suppose I
For
don't know
sure.
the metrics or the economics behind it,
Yeah.
but it gets to the stage where economically it would be viable. Interested if they would pull the trigger in that regard.
Oh, 100%. Like, I'm talking out my butt, you know what I mean? Like I only know the general picture stuff. I don't know that I don't have any insight into the actual stuff, but I'm sure a lot of companies from the last 2 years in the gaming space realized how much shipping and logistics they had to incur the last 2 years, right? And been like, if we could have just invested that into a shorter distance supply chain, how much money would we actually save versus what we have to spend up front, to
Yeah.
avoid these types of things, right?
Oh
So
yeah,
like
because
I'm
it's
sure,
noticeable. It is noticeable. Like,
yeah, but like it's also really it's not trivial to buy a factory and set it up, So like I understand the reticence to do that something like that, especially you know, US labor is not the cheapest in the world, right?
true, but
Like,
China isn't as cheap as it used to be.
oh, a million percent.
I mean, I could, like, if they were
Maybe it
to
comes from
actually,
Mexico. I don't know.
yeah, I was about to say, if they were actually physically going to build a factory, I could see it happening in Mexico.
Yeah.
If they built a factory in Mexico and had the mix being produced there, then like your transport costs are going to be nothing compared to
The
what they are
cost
now.
of exactly right. A couple bucks of gas.
Old shipping containers worth coming over the border. Love it.
Yeah, right. On truck or rather than through a port. That'd be cool. Yeah. Well, it wouldn't really help us over here, but that would be cool for
No, but
folks in the States.
at the same time, you're not waiting for shipments to come from
Yeah.
China, so
Yeah. That's
I
yeah.
would think.
I agree. Now, why is it that America gets all of the good stuff? Like, if I feel like they're the land of plenty when it comes to battle mechs.
Because
Anything you
there's
want.
so many of them. That's why, like,
Yeah.
population was. That's
That's
where, from what I gather, like it does irk me at times the way it's so US centric, but
yeah.
understandably that's such a large chunk of their market. So it's like it's irksome, but also understandable. It's like the largest share of your market you have to sort of take care of.
Wow. Lorcan was, yeah.
Oh, what's
Oh, sorry,
Lorcan
I'm
saying?
catching up on chat. Lorcan was saying Alpha Strike was the biggest single print run for Battletech in the CGL era at 25,000 copies. And Lauren felt that it was a risky gamble. It went back to print before the box even hit the shelves. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Yeah, does I bet you Lorcan would know this. In terms of dollars and revenue, CGL makes most of their money off books, right? Like they're actually like they're a book publisher with a side project of hobbies, or are they making more money off the minis and the hobby side now,
Oh, I'd say
and
it's
those
the
products than
miniatures.
books?
I'd say it's the miniature. Hands down,
Right.
I'd say it's the miniature.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Wonder. Yeah, but I wonder when that shift changed or when that shift happened.
I'd say Kickstarter. I'd say Kickstarter really massively changed.
Yeah, that had to start it. Like that was probably like that makes sense. I guess if there was a watershed moment, it would probably have been the Kickstarter.
Yeah, because like if you look at even production runs of a game of Armored Combat before the Kickstarter, you know what I mean? Like it was hard to get a hold of box sets. It really
Yeah.
was. It was hard to get a hold of a game of Armored Combat or the beginner box sets. Like they were rare as hen's teeth. Like, and anytime they hit somewhere because there was an established fan base, like they didn't last long. You know?
Oh yeah. People were hungry for them.
Yeah, still are. Like, you know?
Oh yeah. Are they gonna reissue the Game of Armor Combat, or like did they discontinue them?
No,
Those
no, it's
sets?
still going. There's another print run that's come through. They keep doing consecutive print runs. We've gotten another print run of Alpha Strike. I think all three are actually, or all four. Like you can get beginner box set, Game of Armor Combat, Clan Invasion, and now the Alpha Strike box set are all in print productions and going through
Nice.
various editions of their print runs. But they're all, you can actually get a hold of them now. You know what I mean? But like
Yeah.
when the Alpha Strike boxes came, I think I ordered 18 for a club, and like holy Jesus, they just
Gone.
up and
Yeah.
disappeared like very quickly.
Yeah.
um,
Speaking of which, I still need to get my copy.
yeah,
The
well,
the club's notable Alpha Strike enjoyer doesn't actually have
doesn't
that
have a
box
copy.
yet.
Well, yeah, but your reason was reasonable. You were like,
Let
you
other
did the
people get it
wise
first.
thing where it's a case of, if that's somebody you would prefer not to buy a copy if that's somebody else getting into the game. And I'm kind of of the
Yeah,
same mindset. You know what I mean?
for sure.
It,
Can I ask you a little bit about your shop and stuff?
sure, far away.
Um, is it only Ireland, like are domestic sales, or do you sell to intra EU?
At the moment, I've only sorted out postage for Ireland, but I
Got it.
don't see why it couldn't be an European wide thing. You know what I mean?
Got it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, I was just wondering.
Like, but the whole idea behind it was last year when we were doing intro games out in Minute. I was thinking to myself, if we're introducing people to a game, surely
Yeah.
if people want to get a hold of it, and it's hard to get a hold of Battletech stuff there.
Yeah.
Surely, if people want to get a hold of it, they want a box set there and then. So the whole idea originally for opening and like a little web store or bringing stuff to the club
Yeah.
was so that people can actually get a hold of this game that we were introducing them to and grow the community quite literally.
Yeah, it's really hard to be a drug dealer if you can't sell the drugs. Like,
You enjoyed that fix? Here's where you can
yeah,
find more.
exactly, right? You spend all this time and literally love, like you have this passion for this, right? And you have a little fusion core of light that is the hobby in you, and you want to like, I want to share this with you, Oh, but like, how can you share it when they can't then take it themselves home, right? They need a copy of the game.
Yeah, exactly. That
So makes perfect sense to me.
if you're at a convention, it's like, well, is there any gaming stores really selling a copy of it? And at that point in time, the answer is no. And so I was like, okay, well then I'll do it. You know what I mean? I was just
Yeah.
like, worst case scenario, I end up with a load of BattleTech stuff that doesn't sell, and I'll just keep for myself. So I was like,
Yeah.
the hell with it. But yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's
well, I wonder. I'm sure. Was that possible scenario ever discussed with your significant other?
Ah, sure, chases. We don't worry about that sort of thing, you know.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Okay.
The less said on that front, the better.
Yeah. Oh, that risk. Well, don't worry about it.
No, don't worry. The risk, nah, be grand, be
No.
grand. It'll work out. Trust me.
Yeah.
Just have to believe, man.
100%. Yeah, man.
Have a look at the comment section and what's going on there.
Yeah.
Orkin is chatting away a fair bit. He was saying the Levoyance Kickstarter backer kit is finally closing at the end of the month, so I'll see a lot of money leave my bank account, but I can actually plan for March then. Spent almost as much on neoprenes and real books I didn't think I'll be able to get locally as I did on minis in the last Kickstarter. That was another thing as well. I did that myself.
Yeah.
Going to be, I think, 4 or 5 lance packs and 2 clan stars, and I think 4 vehicle sets plus the Mercs box set. So yeah, not as crazy as the first Kickstarter. A lot of people who missed out on the last Kickstarter are really looking forward to the new one. There's quite a few people that I've come across have been like, oh, I just missed out. I only started getting into Battletech like a month or two after the Kickstarter. You know, a lot of folk heartbroken.
Oh, that has to be the most heartbreaking time to get into the hobby.
Yeah, just after a Kickstarter.
Oh, you just missed it. Yeah.
See that boat on the horizon? That could have been you.
Yep. Now enjoy waiting like 4 years for the fulfillment.
Well, it wasn't too bad actually. The fulfillment was pretty good.
Yeah, I'm being facetious. When was the actual Kickstarter was 2019?
So I think the fulfillment for me was about 2.5 years, and taking into account we had COVID and full lockdowns going on globally, I'm like, that's impressive.
Yeah, right. You're like, that's fine.
There were mistakes with my Kickstarter stuff, but Atlas and I think called ShipQuest or whatever, between the two of them, everything got sorted, and
oh, brilliant.
They went above and beyond. Getting a bog standard version of the Clan Invasion box set instead of like a Kickstarter one. You could request a cover for it, and I was like, okay, I'll request me Kickstarter cover, and they just sent you another box, and I was like, okay, fair enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You didn't have to do this, but
yeah, that's pretty generous.
Yeah, exactly. They were my experience of the Kickstarter. I would definitely back another Kickstarter with them. They sorted any issues I had out, and I got all the stuff I was looking for.
Yeah. That's perfect.
What other comments have we got going on? Lorcan was saying Alpha Strike was the biggest single print run for Battletech. Yeah, you were saying 25,000 copies, and he thought it was a gamble. This is the guy Lauren seems a bit risk averse, but it's definitely paid off.
It really pays to be risk averse.
It can be. You don't want to sink too much into something if it's not going to pay out.
Exactly, especially when you're like a company the size of Catalyst,
Yeah, I think we keep forgetting that as well.
You can't eat too many risky endeavors, right? You need something that's going to get you to the black through the year, and then maybe like 2 or 3 different extra little like risky growth projects.
Yeah, you can't have stuff eating up your money like that. You're due to invest in the next project.
Yeah, I mean it's like running a Merc company.
Yeah, quite literally. We can't take another loss. It'll ruin us financially.
Yeah, no, 100%.
He was saying prior to the Battletech Kickstarter, it was books for sure. I think it's minis now. Lauren said that CGL is a minis company now, but it might have been kidding. I think it's miniatures. I think miniatures is their moneymaker now. Because look at the difference it's made, man.
Well, that's true. I guess I was going to say, if you got into the hobby now, then you probably are then buying books. Like it's like, they're cross-populating each other, right? When there's more interest in the game, more people buy the minis, books, more people buy the books, right? Which then more people buy the minis because there's more interest for the game, and it's a feedback loop. But I think,
there's been help on the video game in front as well with MechWarrior 5 and the Harebrained Schemes Battletech. Interested to see how many people that's brought in.
True. Yeah, it's got to be an insignificant number. I feel like that was I feel like Harebrained Schemes was my real gateway drug into Battletech proper. Like I always knew about it, but like I never got into it more until uh the video game.
See, you got you, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And once I realized it's basically like
XCOM.
no, it's even better than XCOM. It's like I mean that not Mexcom, but like not from a video game level, but just the lore of BattleTech, you know? Like
Oh
it
yeah,
just
yeah.
it speaks to me. It's so 80s and just it's almost it's like funny in a way that like wrestling is funny, right? It's like the melodrama of it that you're supposed to take seriously, but we all know is a joke is one of the reasons why I like it, right?
Yeah.
Like how many princes and like all the stuff between Lao and the Davians, right? Like half brothers, body doubles, like assassinations, you know what I mean? Like all this stuff is just it's so over the top. I love it. I love that little bit of it. How just um, it's just dramatic, and then and then obviously like the mechs and stuff like that. Just and the war part gives it a sort of Tom Clancy esque feel, you know, from all those kind of movies and genres. So it fits for me. Just this weird niche.
Yeah, the sort of contrast between the two, where it's the combat aspect is very serious, but then yeah, lore aspect, not so much at times.
Exactly.
How did you start in
Yeah.
wargaming, like in general? What was the
Oh
first
man.
sort of, or even gaming in
Um
general, like tabletop, or how did you start off?
I'll be honest with you. I think I had my first earliest exposure and stuff was like obviously like Risk and stuff like that, right? Like I think we all
Hmm.
kind of played Risk, but one of my neighbors was really into what's the company that did Squad Leader? I'm failing to remember their name. Like the Hex and Chit board games,
Is it
right?
like Avalon
Like
Hill
Avalon
or
Hill. Yeah, Avalon
yeah?
Hill. Yeah, it's Avalon Hill. Cause and they were like really into history and that kind of stuff, right? Because they had like a old in America, like on the East Coast, they had like a really old home, and by really old, you're gonna laugh, but it was like from like the early 1700s, right? Which is as about as old as it gets in America as home still standing, right? So like they're like were big like it was an old farmhouse and stuff like that. So they were big in the history, the Civil War, and like that area because that's basically where I was from. You couldn't throw a stone without hitting a Civil War battlefield, right? So like I got to see them play like their family, like their uncles and their kids and stuff like would play these hex and chit kind of games, right? Or like little square ones, right? And they would be playing not like campaign for North Africa, but like they had like Rommel, squad leader, Panzer something,
Racers, yeah,
and like all these kind of games. And being around, I'm like, oh, like there are these war games out here. That's pretty cool, right?
yeah.
So like that's kind of like with my first exposure to war games and being like, this is not like a bizarre hobby. Like this is what people do. Um, so like I think I'm definitely weird in that regard where I had a little bit of an exposure to this sort of broader hobby. But like what really got me into wargaming in general was after after I was getting into Dungeons and Dragons in like high school and stuff. So like that's like primary school. Um I was kind of dissatisfied with Dungeons and Dragons and that kind of stuff. I was kind of looking for something that would be a little more fun for me, and that's kind of what I was getting drawn more and more towards, like the wargaming side, where it's like, oh, like here's kind of what I was looking for. My first like real war game, um, I think it's got to be 40K fifth edition.
Mm-hmm.
I had a Tyranid force that a friend of mine let me use for a while. Oh yeah. So that was like really, and man, I was like looking at building my own Dark Eldar force at the time, and Dark Eldar was terrible back then, but it didn't matter. Um, I was like, oh man, these weird pirate ships, I'm in, right?
Yeah,
And but
the concept sold you. The rule are cool.
yeah, but at that point, it's like, how am I going to buy this? I'm working as a pizza delivery guy, making a couple $100 a month, which is paying for gas, my dates. I cannot afford to do this. So it really kept me out. And then once I went to college and stuff like that, it was always kind of on the back burner. But I was always like always interested in this kind of stuff, right? I always wanted to do it, but never really just had the time to jump out and do it. It wasn't until um I acknowledged my inner nerd after college, and that's kind of where stuff happened.
Embrace the dark side. Finally give in, yeah.
It's like, who am I trying to impress? Being normal. This sucks. Why don't I just spend the money on the stuff that I actually enjoy and embrace the hobby that I'm a nerd and just play just more of this stuff, you know?
Totally, man.
God. Yeah. Colin Colin mentions, how did you start off in wargaming? And said, I hated money and needed a way to get rid of get rid of it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. That is one way to
Yeah.
go about it. All right. If you
Right.
never want your kids to be drug addicts, get them into wargaming because they won't have the money to do anything else. You know.
Yeah, I was thinking about you know, I didn't have to pay for heating this month, so I just burnt all my money on plastic.
Priorities. Priorities.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, fifth ed, like needs back in the day. I don't think I really ever fought Tyranids that often in fifth ed, but I've always kind
Oh.
of liked Tyranids. Like I said, I'm being drawn to the idea of buying a combat patrol
Yeah.
box set for the Tyranids, but I have absolutely no desire to play 40k. But it's just like I've always liked the Tyranids, the lore behind them, the concept, the look of them. You know what I mean? They look like they'd be fun to paint. I don't know what it is about them, but they look like they'd be kind of freeing to paint.
Oh,
There's
absolutely.
a lot of
They're
free form. Whereas I tend to get
couldn't
a
agree
bit
more.
worried about trying to decide on color schemes for units when it comes to mix. Like, oh, you know, olive drab or my custom color scheme or that sort of thing. But the
Yeah,
Nids, I don't know what it
instead.
is about the Nids. They look fun. I've always been drawn to them. I've always liked
Oh
them.
yeah.
Just never pulled the trigger because one Horde army was enough.
Yeah, you again, it's a space problem, right? Where
Yeah,
you're gonna
yeah.
keep all of them,
Where am I gonna put all these?
right?
And God
you know,
forbid you'd
tell
sell
it-
some
you're-
to make space
right.
for more of them. Like that guy, down with that sort of
No.
thing.
Yeah, you know, your significant other goes, you know, can you just downsize? You need all of these boxes? They're like, yeah, it's one army. And she's like, one army? He's like, yeah, I have two. And you're like, two armies? You know what I mean? And you're like, all of this is one army? Yeah.
You know, cut the scene straight to your obituary. He was a good guy.
Yeah.
We knew him well. We knew the jig was up as soon as she found out the truth.
Yep.
Was he caught cheating with another woman? No. He invested in a second army. That was it.
Yeah.
There's no coming back.
Yeah. Man, could you imagine? Man, like you couldn't. How if you were a parent, like how do you balance this with being a parent? You know, like how do you spend the time playing the game, especially something like Warhammer, where it's so financial and time intensive?
Oh, I have no idea. I have literally no idea.
Those people are heroes.
You know, people who still have hobby time and have small children, it's like
Yeah.
the hobby time that they are able to get in is super precious to them. Super
you got
precious
it.
because it's the sacrifice they have to make time wise, just to get a game in or just to paint some miniatures. You know what I mean? I don't know how folk manage it, but fuck me, fair play to them. Like absolutely heroes.
Exactly right.
Yeah, and I appreciate it more. For the likes of me, it's not too bad if a game goes sideways or whatever, or someone doesn't show up, it's like, look, I'll get another game in later in the week or whatever. But that isn't an option for folk, you know. So
right. Could you imagine looking forward to like your like every 2 weeks or whatever, you get your little time off, you even got like a babysitter or something like that, and then you just like show up to your 40k match or your Battletech game and you just get fucking tabled like immediately? Like how devastating.
I kind of felt that way when I played against you because you were like,
Sure.
this is going to shit.
Oh yeah, but listen, if there's anything about me, that's pretty par of the course for me. Anyone who's played any games with me, it's like I just luck has never been my strong suit, so that's fine.
But I don't like. I think that's just part of my character though, as well. Is I don't like winning a game badly, as in I
Sure.
don't like winning a game and it costing the other player's enjoyment.
Yeah, like you want to win, you don't want the opponent to lose, if that makes sense, right? Like you don't want the like I lost because of my dice. It's not because you did anything. Right?
Yeah, exactly. You literally just couldn't hit anything, and it's like, oh well, this like, and when it starts getting to the stage where there's like 2 or 3 rounds of it, it starts getting awkward. It's like, this is
like,
really not panning out well. It's like, I'm sorry.
That's there's nothing you can do about it. Just sometimes the dice be like that. Right? You're like, okay, well, awesome doesn't hit on 6s. Okay, well, see you later.
But that it happens now and then, but thankfully it doesn't
Yeah,
happen that often. But I do.
gotta
I
accept the
love the
variance.
games where you're kicking lumps out of each other, and you literally don't know until like the last round or two who's gonna win.
Oh yeah, when there's that's I think it's one of the hardest lessons to learn as an early BattleTech player is that this is a game of boxing. This is not a game of rocket tag. You will get hit, and you just have to learn how to trade getting hit for dishing out damages yourself. And the idea is that when you get to those last bits of like exactly what you're saying, where yeah, because we both have been trading hits hard, and you
Mhm.
get to that last bit of like, I don't know, man, if you hit me in the torso, I'm dead. Like you already crit out my heat sink. The only thing left in there is SRM ammo. So if you hit that, I'm out. That kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, and
Um,
I find with BattleTech, it's one of those games where it can change in a moment as well. So it's like
oh yeah,
you're losing badly, and it seems like you're gonna get absolutely wiped, and then something happens. You get like a true armor critical, and you ammo somebody, and it just the dynamic can change very suddenly.
oh my god. Yeah, I feel like the most common situation is failing a pilot skill roll.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
That seems to just spiral into death so fast.
Oh, it can do. It really can. Especially if you got the placement, if you got your placement really bad, like failing skid checks and stuff like that, and you end up falling
Yeah.
into a building and then finding a basement, and then it's like, oh my god, I was doing so well.
Yep. Okay. Well, exactly. All of a sudden, cool. I really needed you to shoot this turn, but yeah, you were face down in the basement of a triple F burger. So I guess we're just gonna lose. Like,
Why is
oh
there
man.
three mechs standing above me, aiming at my open torso? Uh-oh.
Yeah. Right.
It's
Yeah. But
interesting.
then, yeah, like some games, it feels like your opponent's two PPCs hit the same position, and then you're just scattering all over.
That happens.
Uh,
That happens. Yeah, I've had that
right.
happen. That happens.
Yeah. I've always felt that like the facing. I love the idea of the variant facing tables where you're less likely to get hit on the opposite side and stuff like that. But it always felt like it never really truly mattered. Like I'm not. Have you ever had an experience where that like really made the difference?
Uh, where you're being fired into your left or right arc as
Yeah,
opposed to
like
straight on.
yeah, you're protecting like you're shielding your weaker side, right? Like, has
Well,
you ever had a situation where that's paid off?
yeah, yeah. Moving so that your angle, so that, like, say my left torso is open, or
Yeah,
even trying to shift it so that my center torso, which is open, is no longer the 7, which is the most common result on the 2d6. I have had it
yeah,
happen where it's hit a torso, the right torso instead, because I've specifically angled to that
sure.
position, like. So it
Okay,
can it does actually help. It does help.
okay.
It's
It's yet to pay
interesting.
off for me,
Yeah.
but
Well, it's a situational thing. It's like
yeah,
how often are you going to actually get the opportunity to do that, to have the maneuverability and think of it at that moment in time while there's about 7 other different things going on at the same time. You're trying to remember, oh
yeah.
yeah, like that facing of that guy, and
It's a
I mean, it can pay off. It can pay off.
it's a really good point. The more you play BattleTech, yeah, the more you're able to retain more of that shit in your head, you know? And
But
there is a lot of to retain in your head when you're playing BattleTech.
it can be, yeah. It can be a steep learning curve in regards to like the finesse of it.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I mean. It's the game's easy relatively to learn. It's that part, right? The idea of how do you execute the stuff that the rules say that you can do well and know when to do it.
It's just learning. It's
Yeah,
really like it's finding out. It's learning the mechs, and it's just from playing against them or using them yourself. Like, finding blind spots where it's a case of, right, if I move into this hex behind you, you won't be able to torso twist and bring your AC 20 to bear on me. That sort of thing.
yeah.
But you have to sort of get used to facing and where are weapons mounted, and if I maneuver, where are the blind spots on the hex grid.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
Yeah. Being able to look over one of those printed out maps, right? Or like the beautiful mouse pad maps and be like, this is where the battle is. This is where I need to be, and like how to jump there or whatever. So I think we all know here, like you told your story about how you were like space wolves and then they got like you fought against orcs and you fell in love with them.
Hmm.
Um, is there a story about Is there like a Battletech equivalent where you fell in love with a mech that basically destroyed your force one time? Is there like an
Um,
equivalent?
is there a mech that destroyed me and
Yeah, that you were
fell
so
in love?
impressed. You were so impressed by its performance, and you're like, oh man, I'm definitely running that in my next composition.
I think I liked the Grendel. I think the
Yeah,
Grendel falls into that category. Or the Wolverine 7K as well. Like I fought
sure.
against some of them and I was like, holy Jesus, it has
Yeah,
two SRM launchers.
yeah.
Um,
That thing is close to being like too good. Like, you know
it's
what I
yeah,
mean?
it's really good. It is really good.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, but it's at the same time I don't want to lean too much on a good mech like that. You know what I mean?
sure.
It can be very easy to sort of fall into that, and that comes back into the needing to get more forces painted up because it's like I can get complacent and I'm like, oh, I've already got like 3 lances made already. Where
Yeah,
I need to stop being so complacent in that regard and sort of build more lances and just just go with it. But I don't know. It's like when I come to pick mechs, like sometimes it's like, does it look cool?
sure.
If I've had me ass handed to me by a mech, I'm like, well, you know, trying to understand, well, what happened there? Um, you know,
Yeah,
where was my position in bad, or is it the
right.
loadout of the opposing mech? Is the reason why I lost? I don't think I've really had that happen where it's been like, oh, your mech was so shit hot, that's why I lost. It was I made a mistake here, and I made a mistake there, and then I overheated myself and I shut down, and then it was my fault
Yeah,
that I lost. I haven't really found with BattleTech as such. I found it interesting when mechs have been brought onto the field, and I'm like, it does what? No, uh,
yeah.
I
It's
don't
always
think I've been
surprising.
annihilated in that regard.
Okay. So, well, I mean, what was the last mech? So you don't even remember like the last mech that really had your that handed you your own ass?
I'm trying to think. Is there any specific mech? Like I lose so many mechs, and they
Sure,
die to everything. So there's not like one specific mech that's been the bane of my existence, so to
sure.
speak. There's, I think Lorcan has a lance or a star that uses C3. So like the whole idea of C3, I've only
Yeah,
dabbled with it a little bit. Um,
sure. I mean, it's kind of weird. Like we basically have C3 in real life now.
oh
Like,
yeah, pretty much.
you
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
like with that's like what the F-23 and stuff can do now.
yeah. Feeding back the targeting information, it's
Yeah,
and being all networked up. It's pretty cool. Like um,
that's crazy.
it's yeah, it's I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
seems really good for LRMs in Battletech.
it'd be surprising, but like the C3 lance that I built is really not suited to C3 because it's it was mostly a brawler force, but yet I found that when I lost the C3 network, it actually had a noticeable effect.
Hmm. Sure. I mean, in general, if you really like took the lore off of it and looked at it from a strictly kind of mechanical lens, a C3 is basically on a good day saying, rather than shooting at medium range, I'm shooting you at short range, right?
Yeah,
Like
so you
that's kind of like what you can expect from it, right?
you get to use the range that whatever mech
It's
in your
closest.
network is closest. Yeah.
Right. And functionally in a match, that tends to be short range for at least like, if there's 6 rounds of a match that are really like the rounds that matter that we're shooting for real, 4 of those 6 rounds is probably going to be short range. So you're really gaining like you're kind of like cheating to a hit penalty or a hit bonus of 2, right?
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah. It
that's
can
kind
be
of the benefit of it,
it
right?
can be a massive difference.
Yeah,
Really be a massive difference.
it's a
Yeah.
huge one. Um, but like at the same time, that cheating of 2 is the equivalent of using pulse lasers, right?
Yeah. So yeah, there are other things in the game. It's not just
Now,
like the be all and end
yeah,
all. And then
yeah.
there
But now
is
if you combine those 2 things with pulse lasers and C3, all that seems like the spot where things get weird real fast.
yeah, it can get horrendous, but then you have to look at the BV, so the battle value for that specific mech then is going to be absolutely sky high because
Yeah.
I didn't know this beforehand. But when you build that sort of targeting network with your lance and it's built with it, there is a cost multiplier to your mech. It makes
Force.
your lance more expensive, the targeting, because it's such a bonus. See, Battletech's
Got it.
beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Everything costs you. Nothing's free. So it's, you know what I mean? It's like, it's a great bonus, but like if you were doing that and you had like pulse laser mix, you're going to have the cost of the pulse lasers and your multiplier for your C3, plus whatever modifiers you've already taken for your pilot. So yeah, you can build a shit-hot lance with shit-hot pilots and a C3 network, but they're going to cost an astronomical amount.
Yeah. Something that a mercenary force can't really afford to spend on a flippant mission.
Well, yeah, that, you know, the cost of replacing stuff as well. And it depends on the era. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, if you're dealing with C3, you're already past like Clan era, right? Like that's at least Civil War.
Yeah, that sort of era. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Do you ever deal with like ECMs and stealth and stuff that when you play?
ECM's the odd time, but the advanced tech I haven't really leaned into. I'm only starting to get into that now myself. Like
Sure.
most of that type of stuff I've dealt with as being in tournaments and stuff where there's, you know, funky stuff going on, stealth armor, and you know, because they'll play different eras. They'll be like, you know, Succession Wars, Clan, Jihad, and then they'll give you like experimental tech and stuff whenever it's being run. And it's, you know, it's interesting. You're trying to find out the trade-offs of different weapons. Like, you know, some heavy weapons can only be fired if you don't move, or there's a penalty, or, you know, a point and skill roll required if you did move beforehand and how far you moved and all this type of stuff, you know?
Is that like, what kind of weapons do that kind of stuff? Like artillery?
Oh, I think it was like some form, something Gauss. I can't remember the name of the weapon off the
Oh,
top of my head.
sure.
But
Some kind of like sawed off heavy Gauss rifle.
something like that. Yeah, yeah. It did like
Snub nose Gauss rifle.
they
Yeah.
did a large chunk of damage, but it's a case of, you know, can you hit with it
Sure.
type of thing. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the experimental tech, I'm not, if I'm being honest, I'm not that versed in that well. You have to remember, I've only actually been playing Battletech properly since about like 2017, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's almost twice as long as I have been.
True, but I tend to lean towards Succession Wars as well, which is a habit I have. But I'm not averse to trying later eras the same way I'm not averse to trying Alpha Strike. I'm like, it's not what I'd aim for, but you know, at the same time, I don't mind getting a game in.
A game is, yeah. So your A game is better than no game.
Oh yeah, totally, man. A game of Battletech, regardless of its format or era, is better than no game of Battletech.
Yeah.
It's definitely better than a game of 40k. I'm like, fuck that shit.
Right. Yeah, that was, man, if 40k had a you go, I go kind of style, I would be much more inclined to give it more of my time.
But it is
But,
you go, I go. I think you mean if it was simultaneous.
Alternating, yeah.
Alternating activations, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Yeah, thanks for correcting me. Yeah. That it's I don't know, just it's something about that, and I don't know, the way BattleTech does it is like a pretty fair median as well. Like it's a pretty decent compromise of like concurrent phases.
Exactly. It's like, I may kill you, but you still get to fire your guns off, so you can also kill me at the same time if you get to look in. I'm like, you know, there aren't a lot of war games out there that are just as fair. You know what I mean?
Exactly. To let me get stuff that prevents you from being tabled without having a chance to.
Yeah, because there's nothing worse. So regardless of the war game, there's nothing worse than you make your new unit, you've painted it up, you put it on the table, you know what I mean, and you want to be able to actually use it in a game and have a bit of fun. The last thing you want to do is, I'm going second, and it's shut off the table before I get to use it. You know?
Yeah.
Happens so often because it's like, ooh, new shiny, and it draws people's attention. You know?
Yep. I just listened to, I listened to two Horus Heresy novels, and as I painted up this giant fucking Imperial Knight, and cool, and it's dead. Turn 1 to Tau Railgun. Cool, thanks.
Yeah, but before
game,
before you've gotten a chance to use it, like there's no enjoyment. Like for me, that game has cost that player like too much.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be as swingy as that, regardless of whatever game it is. You know what I mean? You should feel that you at least have some form of participation. I don't like mechanics in games that take away the participation of players. For instance, like morale or something like that, or special rules causing damage to units,
Mm,
forcing players to take their units off. It's like, well, you know,
okay.
a large aspect of some of these war games is the IKEA effect, where it's like you've painted it yourself, so you're invested in it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I find it's less. It's probably just me personally, but I find it less of an issue if my opponent kills my miniatures and takes them off, and I have to take them off the table, than this game mechanic forces some of my miniatures to die and be taken off. You know
Okay.
what I mean? Like, I feel it robs the gameplay a little.
Sure. 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 That makes sense to me. I could understand why that would be irksome to folks. I personally don't mind it, but I totally understand why someone would. Now, what let's to put a finer point on not liking morale and stuff like that. How do you feel about force withdrawal in BattleTech?
I like it though. It reminds me of the old morale rules where a unit would start retreating in the likes of 40k, but they could still shoot. They could still
Yeah.
participate in the battle, so to speak. On old orc rules, you could mob them up. So, they'd mob up into another unit behind them, they'd join them, and then go forward because, obviously my context in that regard
Yeah.
would be from orcs. But, still, there was some form of participation. And I know a lot of people didn't like that. It was kind of like homework for them that, oh, yeah, and this thing that constantly happens instead of the unit just being taken off. Like, I can
Yeah.
get that. It's like it's no longer combat effective. Ergo, just take it off the board. I get that.
Hmm.
But I like the whole. I like.
Seeing the stragglers and the left behinds.
Yeah, because that's part of the game.
Yeah.
Whilst also touting very abstract war game and the enjoyment of it. Using force withdrawal, I think, is a good game mechanic in BattleTech because it also ties into an aspect of gaming that I've always enjoyed when I used to play Battlefleet Gothic a lot when I was in London, where it's when you're playing and there's no cost to you. Like, there's no long term cost to you throwing everything, you know,
Yeah.
hell for leather, whatever, you know, just throwing caution to the wind and going all in. Um, it creates a certain play style.
Yeah.
Where
The suicidal playstyle.
exactly, you just kamikaze stuff in, and you don't really care if you lose it. Whereas when we were playing Battlefleet Gothic, it gives me that feeling that I find force withdrawal brings in, where it's a case of crews aren't going to be suicidal all the time. They're going to want to protect themselves up to a certain point. They're going to want to withdraw from the battlefield. If you're a commander, you know what I mean? Not every battle is going to be we've our backs against the wall and this is it. We're all going to die, so we might as well, obliterate as many of them as we can. There's going to
Yeah.
be battles where it's a case of we need to nurse our resources and pull back and repair. And I found that with Battlefleet Gothic when we were playing campaigns. That's what I liked about it. The playstyle shifted considerably. Um, and the downside to that game was some of the factions were intentionally designed to be played in that campaign setting. And when they weren't, then, and it was just hell for leather, their downsides then weren't contributed into the game. Whereas when
Yeah.
we play campaign, suddenly, it cost me double victory points for my Necron tomb ship, but it's also twice as expensive for me to replace it. So it's,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah. The nuance and the trade offs gets lost when you're just playing beat 'em up or smash up.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And I find Force Withdrawal brings that aspect in for BattleTech as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I love that.
We should go on to the comment section and see who's tormenting us.
Yeah.
Tucker is saying C3 was clan invasion tech. Hobbygate was saying Succession Wars lets you punch filthy clanners in the face while settle for less. I like it. Essex Boys was saying if 40k played like Star Wars Legion, it would be far better to play. I have not dabbled with Star Wars Legion. Have you tried it yourself, Eric?
No, I've seen some battle reports though on the internet floating around. Seems interesting enough. I've just never been a big Star Wars fan.
Eh,
I know that's sacrilegious, but
I mean, it's understandable. I get it. Not going to be for everyone. I always liked it as a kid, but that's because, you know, my stepdad had VHS tapes of the original
Mm.
trilogy, so it's like, yeah, sit down and watch this, you know.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
There's nostalgia in it for me. Hobby Gate is saying Legion is fun, also, although there are balance issues with that one too. Imperial player decides to castle, it's hard to counter without a right unit. But I
Yeah,
much prefer it to 40k. Okay.
most games have balance issues. It's really hard to balance complicated war games.
Yeah, like
But
it's quite hard to do it, but there are some that make better attempts of it than others. I'd say is the
yeah.
caveat to that.
But the part about when you were saying the thing that you were talking about earlier about when you're playing a campaign format where missions take on this extra level, one extra dimension and nuance is kind of why that's been kind of my favorite part about role playing games as of late. Is because I love the idea of like war games that are more open ended where you have to create, it's more of a problem space than just can I just sword you to death, like it's not as interesting as when you're trying to solve political problems, things that cannot necessarily be killed by a sword and having to have this space. So like and how that gets translated into like a war game environment is like, have you ever heard of a like the Bronstein? Have you
Which
ever heard that term before, or is that like too like academic and
Bronstein?
nerdy? Yeah.
No, I've not heard of it.
Okay. Bronstein was one of the original theoretical campaigns um, for wargaming, for like some Napoleonic conflict, right? Bronstein is like this made up town in between Germany and France, and the guy running it was telling because he wanted to do like a France versus German campaign, right? Like some kind of Napoleonic Austria, France kind of match, and they had a sort of like pre-game where they were like, um, we are going to play students at Bronstein University, and half of you are pro French, half of you are pro German students, you know, and let's see what happens, right? And so like the original like preface of this game was like this was supposed to be sort of like the outbreak of the war and this sort of microcosm, and you start to play with these politics of like, what side is Bronstein going to go to, you know, and as when the war breaks out, right? And so like these sort of open-ended questions, and you get this kind of like weird space where you're able to negotiate, right? Fights, which also feels extremely and to bring that sort of like weird space of negotiating before a battle. I don't know, that's something I always wanted more out of BattleTech because that feels super BattleTechy, right? It's almost like the clans do their bidding and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is even more about like bidding directly with your enemy, right? Where it's like, how much do we want to commit to this fight? Being like, don't make me do this. Like, I don't want to fight. You don't want to repair, right? And yeah, it's that same question of like, if we do this right now, that means you're not going to be available next mission. I'm not going to be available next mission. No one wants that. Like let's try to come up with a compromise, right? And it works really well when it's not just like a one-on-one, but like a multi action.
Multiplayer, yeah.
Yeah, right.
One on
Because it's
one, it
like,
seems like it wouldn't
yeah,
actually open up because there is only direct conflict between two parties. But when it's multiplayer, I get you. Yeah.
multipolar, yeah. When you can play people off each other, not just like from a diplomacy angle, but like the idea of the threat of, oh man, if I do this though, I won't be available next mission, or I won't be available, I won't, because that kind of stuff, that level of complexity is really really fun, and for me, for
I mean,
games.
it sounds doable in regards to like campaign play for BattleTech, where if you limit players to a certain number of actions,
Yeah,
um, yeah, they can diplome the snot out of stuff in downtime or in between time or time between when the war games are resolved or the actions are resolved. Like there's yeah, it's that like that sounds really fun. That reminds me of the description people have given me of Diplomacy, the game. I've never
yeah,
played it, but it reminds me of that description. And I've never played Diplomacy, but I've always been intrigued by it. Always been sort of interested in playing it, but I've just never had the opportunity. Where it's
absolutely.
where there is that sort of that role play aspect of it, and it
Yeah,
reminds me of some LARPs that stuff would happen in that regards where you're role playing it out and you're making deals with these guys, and if we stake your claim on here, maybe that'll upset this faction, so we'll do this other thing instead. Or yeah, making it multidimensional where it's not just resolved in conflict on tabletop. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't see why that's not doable with BattleTech. It sounds totally doable, especially because there's the role playing aspects are already part of the game mechanics. They have a role playing game that can be integrated into your tabletop game, or if you want to go higher again and you wanted to do like whole system invasions or a grander
Oh
campaign,
yeah.
it's all various levels of it.
Yeah. Have you ever played speaking of those grander campaigns, have you ever played any kind of game that uses have you like War Master? Have you played War Master?
I've not the tabletop game, War Master.
Yeah, you're yeah, the old epic fantasy battles
Not
game.
tried War Master.
Okay.
Wasn't popular around these parts.
All right. I have a weird nostalgia for that game, despite never playing it, like growing up with it or anything like that.
I
But one of
go on,
I
continue.
was gonna say, but one the reason why I bring it up is because one of the mechanics of that game is something I want to get your opinion on. Because it comes up in some other war games as well, like Lion Rampant and stuff like that. But like, in order to activate your units, like you have your commander or whatever, but then you have to roll a die for your turn and be like, all right, I want to activate this mech, right? Or I want to activate this unit, right? In order for them to get heed my order, right, and do what I want them to do, I as the leader need to roll a certain amount on a d on 2d6 to activate them. And if I fail, then my turn's over, right? So the idea here is like you might have like 7 units or so, and so
Oh,
you might be able to activate them all, but then you kind of just go until you fail activating, and then once everything's been activated, then it goes to the other person.
so you
Um,
prioritize.
yeah, have you ever had that kind of experience in a game with
Yes,
that kind of mechanic?
Battlefleet Gothic, the orders phase would be like that, where you would issue orders to each of your ships, and
Yeah,
if you fail to issue the order, they do. I think, from what I remember, they'd just do what they were previously told to do, or something like that. You'd have diminished
yeah,
capabilities with them, um, but it was like that, where it's a case of right, you're gonna brace for impact, and that'll help mitigate damage. You're gonna whatever, focus fire, and your gunnery will improve, and you need to maneuver. And it's right, okay, which of these actions do I need to happen? So I'm gonna try that first, and then your ladder of priority. Then in which of the chain of commands do you not care too much about, which is critical.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No, exactly. I've always wanted that from like a higher level mech commander kind of game, where like your lance was told to recon, right? Like so it's not going to try to be super intense and fight a lot. It's going to fall back or whatever. And like yeah, you have orders on a lance level of here's what's going on and trying to keep things moving while the rest of your mechs kind of play more or less autonomously. That I always thought would be fun, but I know that's not. I don't even know how to begin having a game that actually does that.
I mean,
I
like,
don't know. I love that stuff.
you could do it. Like, it's like the possibilities are endless. It's just figuring it out yourself, or finding people who have experience with similar things, and then finding it's like a campaign.
Yeah,
I've always found this interesting with campaigns. Everybody loves the idea of playing in a campaign. Very few people are willing to run them.
for sure. That's because it's like role playing games and finding a game master, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a thankless job. It's a lot of it is an asymmetric burden of effort, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, one person is way more what would be the term? Committed to the game. Just
Vested.
not right. Invested. Invested is the better word for it, right? Everyone can be committed to the game, but one person's invested in the game as they're the one spending their free time building the lists and the spreadsheets and the lore and all the structure that goes involved, right? Like think of all like it's think of it in terms of a microcosm of just this stream, right? Think of all the work you had to do having YouTube set up, OBS set up, the graphics set up, the cameras, all this stuff set up. and I just get to show up here on a Discord call. You know, there's it's the same sort of like level of investment into getting something off the ground for one party that's totally different than someone else.
Yeah, I get you. Obviously, like the difference in workload,
Yeah,
is minimal. But campaign wise, it's like, yeah, I get what you're saying. There's an old campaign set that I have a box set for. It
okay,
was a game called Mighty Empires that they had
yeah.
for Warhammer back in the day. Now I don't mean the plastic tiles Mighty Empires. That
Oh,
was that was just a rebranding. There's an original box set. And this was pretty much a campaign game in its own self contained game where you would be moving stuff around and things would happen in different seasons and all that. There's layers to it, man.
yeah.
Brilliant. And then what you
I
would
love
do
that
is
shit.
when two players' pieces would meet is you would play your little game of Warhammer based on how many points you each had allocated in your on your pieces. So you'd have armies roaming around and fighting and capturing towns and forts. So like look into it. I think I think that
Yeah,
sounds very much what you're looking for.
definitely. Right? That is, it definitely is. But I can talk a little more about actually really what I want, right?
Yeah, go for it.
Um, I want there's something about the Napoleonics that always kind of fit right for me with BattleTech. I can't really explain it. Maybe it's just like the giant like mech pomp and circumstance ego and the war kind of stuff that just fits pretty well for Napoleonics. But I don't know. I want the idea of being surprised when I'm playing a game, right? Like I don't want to have something already be determined for me. So the idea of like me taking the top down, the player of the game is embodying the commander that's not on the field, right? They're looking at stuff from like the UAV and having the comms of everybody around, right? And trying to issue orders who has a different picture of the lay of the land than everyone else, right? Um, and so the idea that have a not imperfect ability to influence the game, which kind of leads to that activation thing that I was kind of talking about and alluding to earlier. But then I want to be surprised when it's like, man, I failed this order roll, but for my Bravo Lance, right? But the Bravo Lance commander made his roll and knew the order was to attack, right? And he came through clutch, and because of that, I was surprised that I played this game and I was surprised at how good my Bravo commander like ended up saving the game and saved my bacon there. And and if there was a bigger structural component, it's like, cool, I want to promote that guy. I want, he earned his battlefield promotion, right? He
Yeah.
got his, and I want that kind of like, oh, that was so cool that it was not, it came down to this person, right? This guy is the difference maker. And it wasn't determined ahead of time that this person was going to be the hero of the match. It just ended up through the events that this guy was the hero, right? And that's the stuff that I always find super cool and interesting. I would love to have a game that could let me have that sort of organic experience where a random rule means that this guy, we follow the algorithm of orders, and it means he has to generically roll. But because he did that, the story of all those little mechanics comes out to be that in the moment he made the decisive action to push forward instead of fall back or wait for orders, right? And that is the. But in the same time, like you get the same in a different game. It's like, oh shit, he just Leroy Jenkins and got
Yeah.
killed, and it's like that is the dice, and that's kind of what I'm interested in, right?
Right.
The that execution level. I have no idea how to put that into a game, but that is definitely the stuff that I wanted out of it.
Like as you're going through it, it's reminding me of different games mechanics in different iterations of games.
Yeah,
Like I remember the Tyranids, the hive mind synapses
yeah, yeah. The synapse. Yeah, that's a great analogy.
where it's a case of, if they're no longer under direct control, they'll have basic sort of behaviors that they do. So,
Yeah,
like, I get what you're saying in that regard, and that makes sense. And even you could even put in another layer of it, and depending on the quality of your troops, their predetermined actions may be a bit more complex, as opposed to ye bog standard peasants who can just stand still
yeah.
or
Right.
march forward or whatever.
Yeah, right. It really makes when you pay the point value for a veteran, you get a veteran,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
They're able to march closer, maybe within a distance of the enemy, whereas you wouldn't be able to do that with or unit.
Yeah,
They
right.
wouldn't have the
Like,
discipline. Like
yeah, that's how you get your Wolverine to go toe to toe with the Atlas, right?
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If he was green, maybe he wouldn't.
Oh, it wouldn't even think about it.
It
Yeah,
wouldn't even go near
he's
it.
gone. Yeah. Oh wow, this level 2 hill has my name on it. See ya. I'm gonna sit behind that real quick.
Exactly.
Like that. Yeah. Instead of being like, no, okay, I can try this. I just got to get to its side. There's some heavy woods over here. This is possible, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, love that.
The confidence that's brought on by a veteran, in his
Right?
field of
Yeah,
passion, sort of.
because I think you'll agree with me here that like we play the game for the story, right? The emergent story that happens from the game, right? Because if we knew what was going to happen, then what the hell are we doing, right?
Oh
We
yeah, yeah.
what right? If we knew if all this stuff was predestined in our heads, then like what the hell are we doing showing up here? We want to be surprised. We want to enjoy the story of stuff being unfolded, and that story involves a surprise. So it'd be really cool if um there is more elements that expanded that level of surprise and creates the story from that, right? It's an emergent narrative rather than a predestined narrative.
Yeah, I get you.
Anything can add to that. I'm typically in favor of.
Yeah, like implementing it in Battletech as such. I suppose you could bring stipulations down to the quality of the pilot itself in the same regard. Um,
Yeah.
Could do. It's just to what level do you want to do it? Like, what level do you want that sort of quality of troops or such to affect your game? You know?
Yeah. I think when it comes to designing things, people tend to over design stuff rather than just letting it
Yeah,
vibe,
yeah,
you know.
just yeah.
And so and I'm not any different despite being aware of that. I would still end up over designing some kind of
You're
system for when
cognizant of it.
really.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I still think that, like,
you're not immune
probably
to it.
just the standard, order system like Battlefield Gothic would be fine, and that would probably be enough for what I want. Because then it kinda feels like the people piloting these mechs have personalities and are doing, stuff rather than just being game pieces with perfect information that do exactly what you want them to do.
Yeah. No, I get you. That's sort of the issue you have with being the commander with that oversight or that view
Yeah.
that your playing piece wouldn't have.
Yeah, they don't have the perfect. 'Cause in a way, it makes sense if you're a Tyranid when you're a hive mind, right? Because everyone's sharing the same information. But like when you're dealing with individuals and people, information gets lost and changed. There's a fog of war. Things aren't always in your control. So being able to have that level of, I don't know, strategic frustration is something I'm always after, and I understand that is absolutely not everyone's cup of tea.
Yeah, no, I can get that where it's people just
Yeah.
want a game out of it more so
Yeah.
than that specific experience you're looking for that would come from it actually genuinely being a form of battle, not being privy to
Yeah.
all uh, pieces of information. It's yeah, like there's some interesting mechanics that like I think what you're touching on tends to be catered for more in the sort of historical wargaming field.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
exactly. You see it a lot more in the Napoleonics. I think you see it a lot in Warhammer too, right? Warmaster and kind of stuff, for
Hmm.
sure.
But that's not to say that it can't be ported over.
No, absolutely not. I think
Is
there's
that
definitely
your
something
intention?
there.
Do you tend to create something of this sort and bring it
Yeah,
over?
for sure. I'm not ready yet, but I do have a system that I've been kind of kicking around. But it's more like just a structure for Alpha Strike than anything.
Yeah.
Because I really like a game called Mordheim.
Oh, Mordheim. No, I didn't play much
Yeah,
of Mordheim. I am aware
sure.
of it.
Yeah. Um, if you could just take Mordheim and set it in BattleTech, that would be kind
That's
of like
you
my dream
sorted
game.
then, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You don't hear anything else from me, right? Rather than Warpstone, you're just collecting like SLDF data caches.
Oh yeah, totally. Insert
Right?
MacGuffin here.
Yeah. But I've been kicking around some ideas there, but it's not fully done yet. But it's definitely one of those things that I'm very interested in coming out with and designing. Because I feel like Mordheim has the right level of overhead. You know, when you're talking about how like it's really hard to run a campaign because there's a lot of like work, even on a, like a individual player level, not even in the organization level, like the facilitator level. You still have to keep track of like a record sheet of your experience, what goes up, your damage, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? Keeping a tally of all that kind of stuff. Or I find that yeah, in general, I just find that Mordheim kind of like fits for me that right level of complexity, like that kind of budget of in my brain of before being like, oh, this is way too much. I can't keep track of everything. This just feels like I'm doing more like accounting work, right?
Like
I yeah
context wise, so like I've only in that regard I've played Gorka Morka and I've played the old
yeah
Necromunda. So
sure.
comparatively, like ballpark, where's more time compared to those systems, or do you have experience of those gaming systems as well yourself?
I've only watched videos of Gorka Morka. I would say it's equal to Gorka Morka, so not too hard.
Because in Gorka Morka you're keeping track of like each individual of your party and like his war gear and his individual experience and skills and injuries as
Yeah,
he goes along. And that's
yeah,
the level of complexity you're looking for. Uh,
yeah.
where before it, and if there was any more than that, it would be too much. But that's just about enough.
Exactly. Like that's I don't want to go any further than keeping track of those little things, right? Like I want to keep track of my pilot and how they progress and change. I want to keep track of my company and their own dynamics and how they change. And then I also want to win and collect mechs and that kind of stuff, right?
So
I yeah,
campaign wise, have you looked at the campaign rules? Because I haven't really gone near them much for BattleTech
no,
myself. Have you
not
tried
really.
the war chest point
Um,
system?
yeah, I like the war chest point system stuff like that. But something I've been really interested in lately, like in a microcosm for games, is actually table setup and battlefield intelligence. And the idea of like tactics and stuff like that, right? Like I know you can pick the side of the table that you start on, right? But even more, I love the idea of like being able to say that like, you can set the conditions that we're fighting on. Like we're fighting at night, right? We are fighting in a storm, right? I'm choosing these conditions. Or even more specifically, you can be like, you can have a sort of bidding or some kind of method to set up the table to be like, hills are over here. Like we don't have to say like each roll for each individual hex, but you can imagine almost like a hex, the standard hex map split into four quadrants and being like a hill and a river in maybe like 16 little small bits of four that you can then mix and match and modularize and have your choice of like each of you gets to pick two, right? So you get to set which one somewhere and which one another, then you get to pick the side of the table. So like you have that sort of like intelligence part of like I'm trying to I'm trying to stack the terrain deck in my favor as much as I can if I had the better intelligence than you on these rolls. Right. Just the initial setup of being like, I'm trying to, you know, uh I changed the conditions of the test, right? To fit my favor.
Right.
Even that kind of stuff rather than being like, cool, so we're going to be fighting each other on this hill in broad daylight. Go.
I get you. Yeah, that really sort of ties into historical a lot more, where it's we're having the battle here because the
Yeah.
ground favors such
Right?
this
Yeah,
side.
like yeah, right? You're like and you could almost do it again, like, I love the idea of, like, stringing matches together, so the idea of, like, if you win a recon versus recon battle, you get to set the terrain for the next battle because, like, you're the recon, right? So, like, you winning the recon small skirmish engagement, which might be, like, a breakthrough or some kinda mission like that, that kind of gives you the ability to then choose the next mission type because of that, kinda, benefit, and pick those types of conditions.
And then if you chose not to do the recon instead and decided to do a raid, instead of
Yeah.
being able to pick the battlefield, you've affected what reinforcements they have available, or maybe ammunition types or something.
Yeah, exactly, and if you pick raid, it's like, alright, if you win the raid, you basically win the entire match. But the opponent, when you pick raid, gets your op 4 has a bonus, like, they basically get to play with an additional point value, right? Because they're gonna but maybe it's not all fully available at the start. Like, it's gonna be significantly more challenging for you. But the risk here is that it could be a knockout blow for the entire, like, best of 2 missions, right? As opposed to whatever. Yeah, I love the idea of, like, being able to do sort of, like, best of 3 matches where, even when you're playing with the same, like, force, right? Like, you have to deploy because it goes back to the thing that we were started the night off with, right? The idea that, we're no longer suiciding our mechs because I need these mechs around for another match.
Exactly, and then the own sort of mission types as well gives a purpose to individual mechs that otherwise they wouldn't have. Like your Locust, when you're doing
Yeah.
recon missions, he all of a sudden his value skyrockets as opposed to we're just knocking lumps out of each other.
Yeah, exactly, right? All of a sudden, this mech is phenomenal, and is worth way more than its points. Right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a situation for each of them. I dabbled with something similar with Brian back when I was first getting into BattleTech because I
Yeah,
wanted to play some campaigns, and it was like that with the war chest. It's there would be stipulations that would affect the battlefield that if you opted for them to be there, um, you'd earn extra war chest points. So like if it was a fight at night or not. You know what I mean? Do I want to
yeah,
fight at night time? If so, this is the effect it has on the battlefield, and I earn extra points. You know,
yeah.
um,
Like anything without anything past medium range or whatever is an additional -1,
oh,
right?
there's interesting
But
rules. It's like it's
yeah.
dangerous movement if you're running. You know, that's how
Oh
I
yeah,
lost the
yeah.
Shadowhawk. It was literally first campaign mission. I decided, oh, I'll take the stipulation for night fighting. Shadowhawk
Yeah.
falls over a second time and impales itself on a log, I assume, and explodes the SRM ammo. And I'm like, this is the first mission of the first campaign, and I've just lost a medium mech. It's like, ugh,
To a tree.
to a tree. An open
To a
tile. It
dead
wasn't
tree.
even
Yeah.
a forested hex. It was just an open tile. He just like impaled himself
All
on
over.
something. You know, a very
Oh
pointy rock.
man. Yeah. That's incredible, dude. That's gotta be the worst. That's my kind of luck.
Yeah, but it's fun. But and it
Yeah.
builds that narrative you're talking about. You know.
Yeah. Exactly. Right? You still remember it.
Yeah, exactly. That's those memories, those moments are for me what gaming is about. That
Yeah.
enjoyment, that retelling of the story. Oh, do you remember the time? You know
Yeah,
that mech
exactly.
just wouldn't die. You know.
Yeah. And it's a little bit harder to get those kind of memorable moments when you're only playing a single mission, right?
Yes.
But
Yeah.
stories basically when you're able to reinforce a narrative with multiple retellings in the form of like several matches strung together in a form of campaign, yeah, it's it shouldn't be surprising that those types of memories end up then creating a stronger, more vivid retelling and surprise, right? Because
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
feels like it's all connected.
Exactly. Builds on the experience. So yeah, I pretty much would be agreeing with you on that front, in regards to gaming expectations, where it's fun to play the game, once every two
Yeah,
weeks, and we meet up and we play our little one-off game. But there is something in a campaign that sort of is a multiplier, enjoyment wise and narrative, the whole thing. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Um,
for sure.
definitely.
Well, all right. Well, I think the takeaway from this is that you and I should have a campaign where
This
we we
sounds like a
we
plan.
play.
Definitely, it should be
That's
done.
that's what it sounds like. Yeah.
It definitely
Okay. And
sounds
I
like
will and I will I will take up the mantle of organizing it.
you're
Right.
gonna organize. Oh,
Sure.
very
But you need
very
to yeah.
brave of you. Fair play.
Yeah. We will do all right. I don't mind hashing it out a little bit right now, but like I would love to do like let's just do that, not necessarily a full-blown junk periphery game, but I would love to do something that was like relatively small where we would end up using a couple of vehicles here or there, and as most the force and the mechs are kind of special.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
'cause
Okay.
I like that as a concept. I like the whole like vehicles would be the planetary. They make sense in a planetary defense force because they're cheaper than mechs and they're not
Yeah.
mobile. So like, as your static defense force, you would have more vehicles. I mean,
Yeah.
like you're talking to the guy who went and bought a load of little trucks just to have trucks for the sake of, maybe
Yeah.
do a convoy scenario, or, they just look good if you're raiding a depot, you know what I mean?
Buddy.
So it's, yeah, I think we're on the same page. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Buddy, that's exactly what I've been doing tonight. Like while I'm looking down, is like you probably can't even see them, but I just like been gluing together these little vans that are these little MDF vans, and some cars and some buses and some turrets, just little tiny stuff.
Yeah, sweet.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
no, I'd be up for that. That'd be cool.
lovely.
Be nice to record someone as well, the
Yeah,
interest. See
no,
how the narrative
exactly.
goes. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And
So we can
modeling
come
for
up with something like
advantage.
that. Do you like the war chest system?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Look,
Not your
go.
favorite?
Listen, if you're, you know, if
Yeah.
you're willing to run a campaign, I'm like, you decide.
Yeah.
I'm
All right.
quite happy. You create the stipulations for it. I'm
Yeah.
quite happy to participate. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
whatever ideas or stuff that you have, if you need bits and pieces off of me, like I have some vehicles here as well.
Good.
You
Yeah.
know, we'll sort
We'll figure it
whatever
out.
out.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And we'll do it and obviously we'll do it in classic. But yeah, no, I love that. What's the system that's like the flowchart system where it's like the first battle is this, and then if you win, it's this one, and if you lose, it's
oh,
that one.
campaign tree, is it?
Yeah, yeah, I love. Look, we can do an easy campaign tree. We'll find one that works for us,
Yeah, you can work one out. Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
And we'll do periphery blues stuff. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So did you get much hobby done? We're coming up to the end of the stream. I managed to
Oh my
prime
god.
9 mechs.
Yeah.
I got a few of them primed up in prime time for me.
Yeah.
What about yourself, Eric?
I didn't assemble. I got like 99% of the stuff I wanted to get glued done today. I didn't assemble some UAVs, and I didn't assemble this like small little army base. But I did glue together 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 commercial buses, 9 defense turrets, a bunker, 6 sedans, 4 speed cars, 4 vans. You know, like quite a lot of little guys. I can't even like grab them all, but like here, I'll try to grab as many as I can and show you. But like, I don't know if you can see it in my hands, but like this isn't even all of them. But like, I just been gluing all these little things together. Now I gotta prime it all. So you have to have me back on another hobby stream some point
Oh,
so I can
definitely.
prime everything.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll see them in a campaign in the future as well.
Oh
Like
yeah,
they'll be
for
on the
sure.
table.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll see all the pictures of them at some point.
So I look forward to seeing them in the
exactly.
Discord as well. I want to thank everyone for joining in the hobby hangout as well. I hope you've gotten a good bit of hobby done. You can check out Eric's channel, which we didn't get around to talking about at all.
No, it's okay.
There's a link in the description for the video.
Yeah.
You can check out Eric's channel there. Who knows, you might see some bits and pieces cropping up.
Yeah.
And yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Thanks for coming on, Eric. We'll have you on again soon. Thanks for everyone for watching. We'll catch you next time. Take it easy, folks.
Take it easy.
Boom. It's ended.
Awesome, man.
Hey.